They are all victims of rape and incest. Many did not survive, but they lived to tell their stories.
I found out at a young age that when my mother was 19, she was a college student at Duquesne University. She was coming out of work and she was raped by a man at knife point.
I was conceived in rape and incest between my mother and her father.
The night was going well, but then things took a turn for the worse. They called it date rape. And 9 months later, here I was.
Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive! Keep hope alive!
But in today's Beyond the Dream, we see a different picture, a real story of real triumph in the middle of crime and tragedy.
I called up my caseworker and asked her, was my mom raped? And she said, yeah.
On Thanksgiving break, my mom told me that she wanted to sit down and talk to me. She began to tell me that I was conceived and raped.
Many Bible-believing Christians believe abortion is sinful and should be banned, but some believe it should be legalized in circumstances of rape and incest. Even pro-life former President Donald Trump believes abortion should be prohibited, with the exception of rape and incest.
Where are you now on the question of if abortion should be illegal?
Well, I'm pro-life, and I have
What does that mean to you?
Well, it means it's an issue.
Abortion, even in pregnancy, early in a pregnancy, is murder to you?
No, what I'm saying is this, with caveats, life of the mother, incest, rape, and that's where I stand. And it's so I'm pro-life, but with the caveats, and you have to have with the caveats.
We present to you 11 notable persons who were conceived or bore children as a result of rape or incest. We hope that their stories will inspire you to choose life regardless of the pregnancy circumstances. Number 1. Layne Beachley. Layne Beachley is 7-time world champion surfer. Her mother, Maggie Gardner, was 17 when she was date raped by the manager of a modeling firm in 1971. Gardner became pregnant with Beachley. She was adopted by an Australian family. Layne discovered at the age of 8 from her adopted father that she was adopted when she was only 6 weeks old. Layne met her birth mother in 1999. Layne, on the other hand, has learned through her grief that she is enough and that she does not need to harbor feelings of rejection.
And did reconnecting with birth family help in any way in your life journey and what you've processed?
Yeah, it did actually. I mean, we all want to know where we come from. We all want to know why we're the way we are. And I'm so different to my adopted family. Meeting my mother was literally like looking in the mirror in 17 years' time.
Wow.
There was no question that she was my mother. You know what? We really don't require necessarily external validation to connect with who we intrinsically are, because we are who we are and what we are, and we get to choose that.
Number 2. Zahara Jolie-Pitt. Zahara, Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt's adopted daughter, was conceived through rape. In an interview with Reuters, Mentwabe Dawit, Zahara's birth mother, recalled her horrible rape experience on that fateful evening in 2004 after a day's work at a construction site. He pulled a dagger, put one hand on my mouth so that I could not scream. He then raped me and disappeared. Mentwabe told Reuters in an interview, tears streaming down her face. Zahara's mother, like most rape victims, did not speak up for fear of being mischaracterized or, worse, ostracized by her community. As her belly swelled, Mentwabe could no longer hide her pregnancy and confided in her mother. She later gave birth to Zahara in her family's house. Mentwabe was 24 years old when the incident happened. Angelina Jolie adopted Zahara from an Ethiopian orphanage in 2005 when she was 6 months old.
She's growing up so beautifully.
Number 3. Rebecca Kiessling. Rebecca Kiessling is an attorney and pro-life activist. She is a well-known international pro-life and adoption speaker. Kiesling's mother was raped at a horrific knife point by a serial rapist and became pregnant as a result of the incident. Kiesling met her birth mother, Joanne, at the age of 19, who told her that her biological father was a serial rapist.
I was adopted nearly from birth, and like many adoptees, for years I dreamed of being able to meet my birth mother. My search began on my 18th birthday. I called up my caseworker and asked her, was my mom raped? And she said, yeah. And I was just devastated. When I was 19, I found out that my birth mother wanted to meet me. It was arranged for us to meet by phone. She proceeded to fill me in on some horrific details. And it was truly a worst case scenario. She was very petite, and she was abducted at knife point by a serial rapist. That's how I was conceived. And that was so hard to hear for several reasons. It was difficult to know that I was conceived out of a truly worst case scenario, and to know that my biological father was a really bad man. She went to 2 illegal abortions, and I was almost aborted. But the back alley conditions and the fact that it was illegal caused her to back out, as it did with most women. Decades later, my birth mother and I are both thankful that we were both spared the horror of abortion.
Number 4, Jesse Jackson. Jesse Jackson, former United States presidential candidate and civil rights activist, was formed on the basis of statutory rape, or sexual intercourse with a minor. Helen Burns, a 16-year-old high school student, and her 33-year-old married neighbor, Noah Robinson, a former pro boxer, gave birth to the civil rights activist in South Carolina. She was coerced to have an abortion, but chose to keep her baby.
It gets dark sometimes, but the morning comes. Don't you surrender. Suffering breeds character, character breeds faith. In the end, faith will not disappoint. You must not surrender. You may or may not get there, but just know that you are qualified, and you hold on and hold out. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. On tomorrow night and beyond. Keep hope alive.
Sadly, Jesse Jackson, who used to be a staunch pro-life advocate, is now pro-abortion. As a matter of fact, he once compared abortion to slavery. What has happened to you, Jesse? Number 5. Valerie Gatto. Miss Pennsylvania 2014, Valerie Gatto was conceived through rape. When she was 10 years old, she learned about the horrible circumstances surrounding her birth. Valerie said that her mother was 19 years old when she was raped. She was walking home from work on a major Pittsburgh street when a man dressed in black assaulted and raped her. She believes God created her for a purpose.
I believe my story shows that it doesn't matter where you come from. Your circumstances do not define your life. And I found out at a young age that when my mother was 19, she was a college student at Duquesne University. She was coming out of work and she was raped by a man at knife point. He was disguised, doesn't know who he is. Still to this day, we don't know who he is. And he attacked her, and he was going to kill her, and she managed to get away. And she got away because this bright flash of light from a car's high beams shone over my mother and her attacker, my father, her rapist. And I associate that light with the guardian angel and with just that illuminated that darkness. And I believe that God redeemed that act that the devil put here on earth, and he vindicated it, and he gave her me, and I hope to be that light that illuminates the darkness in this world. And that my mother always she's told me that since I was a little girl. And I want to shine just like that, saved my mother. And I hope to let everybody know that it doesn't matter where you come from. My circumstances were not easy. It was through sacrifice, hard work, and a positive outlook on life and God that I was able to get where I am today because of that.
Number 6. Kelly Wright. Kelly Wright, a former Fox and Friends weekend co-anchor, was born through rape. Kelly writes in his book, America's Hope in Troubled Times, about his mother being sexually raped by a pastor when she was 16 years old. Kelly's mother was close friends with the pastor's wife. Kelly's mother went to her friend's house on that fateful day, but she had gone shopping. The pastor raped her when she entered the house. When Wright's mother discovered she was pregnant, she was offered an abortion as an option. Thankfully, abortion was still illegal in 1954. He says, "It just shows how God was looking out for me, and I had a purpose to live for."
With grit, zest, optimism, and gratitude, anything is possible.
Number 7. Ashley Lawton. According to SaveTheOne.com, Ashley Lawton is a pastor's wife and mother, an advocate for the unborn, and a strong believer in the saving power of Jesus Christ. Ashley was conceived in a reported rape.
The night was going well, but then things took a turn for the worse. They called it date rape. And 9 months later, here I was, born to a woman who didn't want me, didn't plan me, didn't want to know if I was a boy or a girl, didn't want to hear me cry or hold me. Unplanned, unwanted, yet saved from the unthinkable, yet socially acceptable, an abortion. I've always known that I was adopted. I remember my parents sitting me down and explaining it to me. I remember the rejection I felt, the hurt. They loved me so much and wanted to help me deal with this flood of emotions, but they didn't know how it felt. They couldn't. You see, they knew where they come from. I didn't. It was in high school when I found out my birth mother was raped. I was questioning everything, my self-worth, even my existence. Thoughts of suicide came and went. Now, I never acted on it, and I always shrugged off the thought of doing so. Now, I don't always understand in the midst of the storm why the Lord does the things he does, but looking back, I can always see his hand in it. I have learned over my life to trust him and his plan, and his plan is always perfect. I am a child of God, and I am made in his image.
Number 8. Shauna Pruitt. Shauna Pruitt was a 21-year-old university student when she was raped, an experience she described as a death.
I was a 21-year-old university student when I was raped. And, you know, the best way that I can describe that rape is it really felt like a death. She's absolutely not my rapist child. She is my child. I became someone unrecognizable to myself. I went from being a really happy, optimistic, energetic human being to being a shell of myself, someone who was constantly afraid and scared. Not too many weeks after my rape, I ended up finding out from my doctor that I was pregnant. And I asked her, is everything okay? And she said, yeah, the baby is so incredibly tiny that every single time its heart beats, it vibrates its entire body. And she said, here, let me have you listen. And she flipped a switch, and I just heard ba-boom, 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 ba-boom. And it was just really, really, really a touching moment. And I remember saying to her, that baby is all heart. And so I made the decision to not only give birth to, but also to raise my child. She learned a couple of years back when she found out where babies came from. So I had to tell her, you know, baby, when I told you that he hurt me, what I meant is that he hurt me because he forced me. And she just started bawling, crying. And she said, Mom, I'm so sorry that happened to you. But at least you have me.
Number 9. Zooby Adam. Zooby Adam is the author of Enough Said, From Victim to Survivor. She was a rape victim, an experience that terrified her for decades. Despite her decision to carry the child, raising her son has been difficult.
So, I mean, I think up till the day he was born, it was very stressful for me. And after he was born and they put him on my chest, his eyes were wide open and he looked at me and he had this, I know you didn't want me look. And wow. That was very traumatic for me. I just started shaking and they had to calm me down. I couldn't hold him. I couldn't feed him. I probably fed him more than an hour later. But then it was easier because his eyes by then were shut. Mm-hmm. And he was sucking on his fingers. So I think I just did the natural thing. So I waited till he was 18 years old. And I sat my son and my daughter down and I told him why I am the way I am and what has happened.
What was their reaction like?
Oh, my daughter, I think we probably used a whole box of tissues. Wow. My son was very calm. I was actually surprised he handled it very well. Mm-hmm. And I think like an hour or so later I got up and I said, look, I'm sorry, I just had to share this. It's sad. I'm pulling you into my sad world. Mm-hmm. And you know, when I walked past him, he got up and he grabbed me, hugged me, and he said to me, Mom, it's okay, I understand.
Number 10. Travon Clifton. Travon Clifton's circumstance is unique in that she was raped before the age of 13, and she discovered she was conceived in rape when she was 18 years old. Her ugly history hasn't stopped her from fighting to safeguard the unborn.
I was pro-choice, and because I saw cycles repeated, low income, a lot of, multiple children, and the absence of father on Thanksgiving break, my mom told me that she wanted to sit down and talk to me. She was just trembling. She began to tell me that I was conceived and raped. And It threw me into an immediate identity crisis. Does that mean she doesn't want me anymore? I had confided in her about my own sexual abuse that she didn't know I had experienced. When I got raped, I was in my preteen years. I was just about to turn 13. I would ask my mom, like, why didn't you abort me? She said she didn't see me as a rapist baby. She didn't see me as the rape baby, that's how I saw myself when I found out. I thought that was the stigma I put on myself, and I thought that everybody would see me that way. But not even my own mom. She never even treated me like I was a burden to her. Just somehow have the desire to protect me and just to see me as a separate human being. I am so grateful. I am my mother's only child. And that often blows me away when I think about the decision that she could have made. One decision impacts generations. She blessed me with life, and I get to bless her with grandchildren.
Number 11, Christy Hofferber. Christy, an adoption advocate and pro-life speaker, was conceived through rape and incest. Her grandfather is also her father. When Christy learned about her traumatic conception, she was devastated, but her own struggle has compelled her to help others.
I was close to turning 30 that I decided, there's something that I haven't resolved in my life. The information that I received upon asking my parents was never anything I would have been prepared for. I learned that I was conceived in rape and incest between my mother and her father, and I never expected that, ever. The first child that was conceived, she was in her early teens. Through physical violence and abuse, the child did not survive. The second pregnancy was my birth. The 4 subsequent pregnancies after my birth were terminated through abortion. I had to rely very heavily on my Christian upbringing and my faith, and I knew in my heart that forgiveness is something that I needed to process. I needed to offer forgiveness. By forgiving my biological father for his actions, I was then able to process what had happened. I was able to move on as well. I absolutely feel like I am here for a reason, and I am God's child, and it is through his divine purpose that I am here.
If you are a victim of rape or incest, know that you are still precious in the sight of the Lord. You are fearfully and wonderfully made, and you are the apple of God's eyes. Don't believe Satan's lies. You are not worthless. You are important, and your life is valuable. Turn to Jesus for healing and restoration. Finally, if you aborted your child, know that God is ever willing to forgive you if you repent. Don't hold on to guilt. Instead, give it to Jesus, who knows how to mend a broken heart.
A child conceived in rape is just as precious as a child conceived in love, because a child is a child.